Hello, welcome to another Smoker guide. This time I will be explaining Smoker for OP13. This will be a little different than most of my guides. The OP13 meta is really new because of the bound list mostly. So a lot of conclusions that I typically try to have for the time when I'm making my guides are still in development. So I wanted to try something different. This is sort of an invitation, more so a stepping stone for you to build your own smoker guides, to share your findings with me. I will be very happy to read every single one of your comments. Um, Take this less as sort of like a master guide or something, and more of an invitation to start playing the deck in OP13. Um, but I mean, the deck is definitely still strong. It has gained a couple rough matchups. We'll talk about that specifically in a second. But for those of you that are new to the channel or are watching a Smoker Guide for the first time, this is essentially the core of the deck. Your 5-cost Smoker, the Tashigi to back it up, which you can essentially play on the same turn you play Smoker by combining both your leader ability and the character ability. And then the deck is sort of a collection of strong tempo cards. In my opinion, the most important one being Gamba Molgan, which is essentially what differentiates Smoker from other green decks that can run the 5-cost Smoker. Not only you can apply pressure faster with this deck, but also being able to leverage Molgan for slower for matchups that are where you have to go faster than sort of like a slow control-y deck. Makes Smoker a very strong mid-range deck, generally speaking. So the OP13 ban list, as I've mentioned, kind of brings a couple of advantages to Smoker. Mostly sorry, OP13 as a whole makes Smoker stronger because of the Flash package. However, the post-ban list meta has definitely not been as kind to Smoker as I personally would have wished. Obviously, Smoker did not get touched by the ban list directly, but the unbanning of Sakazuki, which is probably your second roughest matchup of any of the commonly played decks, is definitely a blemish towards the viability of the deck. And losing, I will use very strong air quotes in terms of what losing means here, but losing the blue-purple Luffy matchup, which was one of Smoker's strong suits, it did very well into blue-purple Luffy. Losing the blue-purple Luffy-centric meta definitely hurts the strength of the deck as a whole, I would say. Fortunately, there's some new things for Smoker to do, but before talking about that, we'll talk about which matchups you should be aiming to play Tashigi against. Essentially, these are pretty much every single deck that you will run into on the ladder, but as a rule of thumb, you want to play Tashigi into black decks, into blue decks, into yellow decks, specifically because of the Zeus 2K counter card, and also Lim and Shanks. Lim, not as important and not as relevant, but Shanks is definitely a centralizing force in the post-ban list metagame. Also, something that kind of hurts Smoker, generally speaking. But yeah, you want to memorize all of these. You want to aim to play your Smoker coupled with Tashigi in most of these matchups on curve, and definitely one turn after at the most, or else you might be in for getting heavily punished. So, building Smoker in OP13 is pretty much the same as building it in OP12. I mean, the new additions, instead of centralizing or combining, I would say, are the Punk Hazard core of Sanji, Smoker, Tashigi, and Chopper with Molgun and Kit and Hody Jones. You're going to want to be focusing on the new 8-cost Dracula Mihawk, which is probably at its strongest in the Smoker deck. And also in combination with the new secret Bonney, which actually shores up a lot of the deck's weaknesses. Now, the Slash package is your friend, I would say. This is the main draw of playing Smoker in OP13. It makes amazing use of the Perona searcher. Perona obviously searches Smoker, so we are going to be replacing the Navy package that we used to run with the Peacock Searcher with Perona. Mostly because we can find specifically the 8-cost Dracul Mihawk, which we would be playing anyways. This card is insane, generally speaking. You pretty much want to run this in every single green deck or half green deck. Smoker not only has the bonus of being able to play this, but also being able to play this for what is essentially one Dawn, and that is crazy valuable. It allows the deck to play in a way that it couldn't play before. Like before, if you fell behind earlier, you essentially just lost. Like if you didn't find your Smoker on curve, you essentially just instantly lost. That still happens in some of the matchups. Obviously, we are playing more of like a mid-rangey tempo deck, but now Mihawk allows you to have a consistent, searchable boss monster and late game strategy, and a lot of decks just cannot deal with the amount of value that you start to pump out once you hit a Dawn with this deck. However, in order to support the Mihawk, we are going to have to make some concessions. We are going to be running the 2-cost 2k Kinemon, essentially mostly because it's just a Punk Hazard hit that's also a slash hit, and it's a 2k. There's only 2 cards that are slash and Punk Hazard. Kinemon is one of them. The other one is obviously the 5-cost Smoker, which we already are running. And then we're going to be complementing these with Spiderweb is here as sort of like a defensive green event, because Perona, for whatever reason, can also search green events. And the new event, I'm going to just call this Deadman's Game, but it has the crazy long name. This card is essentially Hody Jones on an event, which sometimes is better, sometimes is worse, but it is searchable, it defends your leader, so it's also very good in Smoker because it's a 4 life leader. And if you played Smoker before, there's some situations where you're kind of ahead on board. You don't really want to play anything to step into one of your guys because you have sort of like maybe like 2 choppers, a Smoker, and something else. And events become really, really valuable at that time, so that you can still use your leader ability essentially without losing a space on board. Deadman's Game essentially does everything that Hody Jones used to do, but is also searchable, and it costs half for whatever reason. This card, in my opinion, a prime candidate to get banned in the future, but right now, I mean, we'll just abuse Bandai's mistake, I guess. So now for your curve, this is essentially mostly what it used to be. On 5 down, you want to play Smoker and Tashigi. On the Tashigi matchups, if not, you want to play the Sanji, or like a second Sanji if you are lucky enough. On 7, you want to play Smoker. You can play double 5-drop on 7 if you're comfortable enough with the way the board is going. But typically, you're going to be playing something like second Smoker or Bonney, combined with like leave Spiderweb open or something along those lines. Maybe Smoker plus Chopper, something like that. Double 5-drop is very strong, but sometimes it's too aggressive or like too ambitious, and you end up losing because you overextended and you didn't leave enough down up to defend yourself. The even curve, luckily for us, got a lot better. 6 down, still Smoker Mulligan, pretty much the bread and butter of the deck. Against green matchups, this is essentially the game over button. You just play Smoker, you Mulligan their 5-drop away, and you instantly win the game. On 8 dawn, however, curve got immediately stronger. We're not running 8-cost Kid anymore. 8-cost Kid, essentially an insanely annoying card to play against, but Mihawk is just so much better at everything. It's better if you chain it, it's better if you draw multiples of him, you can search for him, he defends, he attacks as well, which is very good, obviously. Not as vulnerable to Mulligan, which used to be one of your biggest problems. Not as vulnerable to black removal as well, because you can play Mihawk combined with Tashigi for free. Mihawk is just crazy strong. Allows you to push for game as well while you're developing the board, because he only costs 1 dawn in this deck if you already have your Smoker set up. Mihawk is essentially everything that the deck wanted. A searchable top end that you don't mind drawing multiples off. he doesn't demand you build your deck around him or just to be able to play him. So we've shaved off the 2 Ghost Rosinantes and the small blockers. This card essentially is a catch-all for the deck. And the new 5-cost Bonney, sort of partners in crime, I would say, the new Kid and Hody. You essentially just play Mihawk, then you play Bonney, and the play essentially makes you done neutral double blocker setup. You can use your both the Bonney and the Mihawk to push for game the next turn, because you can chain another Mihawk as well. It allows you to pass with Spiderweb open, so it's essentially an offensive and a defensive play at the same time. So yeah, still I would say the odd curve is still probably stronger on average. So if you're doubting whether you should go first or second in a matchup because you're blinding into something you've never played against before, or you don't really remember what you want to do, you should probably still blind the odd curve, but the even curve got so much better. It used to be that some matchups you lost a die roll and you immediately lost, and now that still happens sometimes, but the even curve is just so much stronger right now for Smoker. It's crazy actually. So now this is the deck list that I have been playing. This is what I feel comfortable playing. We'll talk about the ratios, but essentially this is for Verona, for Virgo, obviously, like double searcher package, Punk Hazard, and Slash. Virgo is stronger early game. Like if you see a hand with 2 Virgo, it's better than a hand with 2 Verona. Mostly because Virgo finds your early pieces, like the 3-cost Sanji, the 4-cost Chopper, and specifically in a lot of matchups Tashigi, which is crazy strong. I mean, there's not. If you watched my earlier guide for the OP11 meta, there's not a lot to discuss here. We're playing sort of like my techie card of the format, which is the 4-cost Shanks. Essentially, this specifically into Rayleigh is fairly decent, but it's also pretty good into every matchup. Allows you to get rid of bricks late game. Strong into Zoro, strong into pretty much anything that wants to pinch you for 5 every single turn. We're only running 2, but it's fine. If you used to run Maka in the previous set, Shanks is essentially kind of like Maka with blocker. He doesn't defend 7 on his own, obviously, but he still defends 6, which is fine. And he blocks, which is obviously very important. He's also a slash hit. This is essentially 20 slash hits, 20 Bank Hazard hits. Still, Smoker is one of those decks. It used to be, and it still is, one of those decks where card advantage and card economy is very important because you're 4 life leaders. So if your searchers miss, it is kind of like the end of the world. So I would advise against running less than 20 hits for each of the searchers, which is what we have right here. Unfortunately, that means that we are running low on the amount of Hody Jones that we're running. Hody is very strong on curve, but some matchups you just cannot afford to play him. And most of the times, just playing Dead Man's Game is just as good. Also, Dead Man's Game is searchable. Also, it's better against aggro. It saves you from like a crazy push late game if you're playing against something that has green in its colors, because they most of the time you're going to be resting your blockers to push for game. And Dead Man's Game, is just essentially guard point at that point in time. And then our defensive green event of choice to use to be able to perform multiple blocks with 8-cost Mihawk is going to be Spiderweb. Now this list still pretty straightforward. I mean, Smoker was never one of those decks that you need like a huge brain to be able to play efficiently. But the deck got harder. It's harder to play this list properly than to play the kid version properly. But I still think with proper play and proper thinking, you will be able to master this. Essentially, the most important thing would be identifying when you can push for game using, or you can pressure your opponent, I would rather say, using all your Dawn. and when you need to leave a spiderweb up. But mostly the idea is just you curve out, you start dumping Mihawks every single turn. Mihawk into Bonney, finds you your cards, fixes your hand, dumps your bricks. You essentially want to pass playing essentially a Mihawk, then your next turn you swing with the Mihawk, and then you play another blocker, maybe two. Every single turn you keep on dumping bodies into the board. And if you're scared that you might die, you just leave the spiderweb up. That's pretty much it, I would say. That's generally the gist of the deck. Okay, so it has to come to my attention that maybe you can see the last card in the previous slide. It is Spiderweb, the 2-cost green event. I'm running 3 copies of that. Now, other cards that I've thought about playing, but I decided against. The first one, pretty much Igloo. A lot of people asked me in my last stream, are we not running Igloo anymore? Why are we not running Igloo anymore? The card is fine. It's just a punk hazard hit. Essentially, when you look at the list, there are no single punk hazard hits that you can comfortably cut. Like our punk hazard hits right now are Tashigi, Kinemon, Sanji, Chopper, Smoker. All of these cards you pretty much need to run 4 of. So, I mean, there's no room to fit Igloo. Maybe if you decide to like shave off Howdy Jones, or you don't want to run 4 Mulligan for some reason, or you're not scared of your searchers missing, then you can definitely run Igloo. It's a good card. It's just not, it doesn't make the cut, unfortunately, I think. Now, Carrot, on the other hand, I've been very impressed with. Probably my I would say, biggest regret is running 0 of this card. This card essentially flips the Kuzan matchup on its own when you're behind. Freezes pretty much freezes the 7 Sakazuki, freezes the Kuzan. It's great in the matchup. So if you're having trouble playing against Kuzan in your locals, definitely try to fit into Carrots. I would personally venture to say, if you're not scared, just shave off the Hodies and just play 2 Carrots instead. The card has counter. It's very, very good. You can play it after Mihawk if you don't have Bonney in hand, and the card is still performs what it should do. It's sort of like a tempo, defensive, aggressive card hybrid. It's just very good, generically speaking. Then Paradise Waterfall. Obviously, I chose to run Spiderweb instead of this. Spiderweb just does more. I mean, the advantage Waterfall has is that it only costs 1 Dawn, but Smoker's advantage is the fact that you can pretty much essentially pump out that you're just like a Dawn printing machine every single turn, especially when you get to the Mihawks. So I would rather run Spiderweb. Yes, sometimes you're overpaying for Waterfall, but essentially most of the time you're just gonna be able to use Spiderweb more flexibly. So I would say just run the better card and flex the advantage that you have extra Dawn to work with, whereas something like Bonney or Zoro or whatever just cannot leave 2 Dawn up after playing Mihawk. Smoker can, and you should probably be abusing that instead of trying to run a worse card that's cheaper. That is obviously just my opinion, but I've had a lot more success with Spiderweb than with Paradise Waterfall. You can also mix and match if you're scared of your opponents, like reading what your counter events are going to be. So you can run like 1 Waterfall, 2 Spiderwebs, whatever. But I would say the main advantage of Spiderweb that Waterfall does not have is that your opponents are going to want to pinch like small hits when you have your blockers up. Just to get you to burn the Waterfall for free, essentially, because if you only have 1 blocker, so this is sort of like a weird thing to explain while talking, but if you run into it, you'll know. If you only have 1 blocker and your opponent pinches you for like 6 or 7, and you need to block because you don't have the counter in hand, you need to burn the Waterfall right there. So if your opponent swings 7 and you block with Mihawk, you're fine. Like, you don't need to dump the Waterfall out again. But if you want to be able to block with Mihawk the next attack, you need to burn the event essentially right away. However, Spiderweb is +9 counter, so essentially it just, not only is it 2k counters instead of Waterfall being just 1 2k for 1 Dawn, essentially Spiderweb, you're paying an extra Dawn to draw a 2k and dump it in the same attack. And it also allows you to block with Mihawk. And then if your opponent swings 7 again at you, just Spiderweb there. And then you have Mihawk up for the 3rd attack. So it's sort of a lot more awkward for your opponent to attack into you if you have Spiderweb in hand instead of Waterfall. Then, I mean, we have Dragon. Dragon used to be sort of like a common choice if you wanted to play a more aggressive build of Smoker instead of just like a full mid-range kid, Hody, control, whatever. The card is still good. I mean, not a lot to say there. Doesn't synergize very well with Mihawk, but if you need another 8-drop, probably Dragon is the way to go, I would say. It's just fine. I mean, it's nothing out of the ordinary, but if you need to run Dragon or you're scared you're going to get out-tempoed or something, I guess you can run like 1 or 2 Dragons, I guess. It's fine. Then, well, I mean, we obviously have, these are more like traditional Smoker things, things you used to see in like OP10 when Smoker just came out. Then Beckman, Luffy, and Monet. These cards specifically, all very good into Shanks, and Shanks is unfortunately for Smoker back after the UP, like the blue purple Luffy ban. Unfortunately, Shanks is back, and I mean, if you want to attack against Shanks, then Beckman definitely a card. If you're going to run Beckman though, you probably need to run Monet and Otama as well. So I mean, you need to do a lot of tweaking to your list just for the Shanks matchup, which I would personally advise against. But generally speaking, Beckman is just a strong card. Like if you run 1 or 2 Monets, he hits a 7 cost sometimes, like a 7 power, sorry. And that's more than enough against Shanks most of the time. So, you know. And then there's the 5 cost Luffy. He's just an okay card. He's an extra 5-drop. He doesn't have counter, but that's less bad now than it used to be in like OP11. So you could run some Luffys. I've tested him out for like a couple games. He works. He's fine. Great into Teach. Great into Lucci. Great into Sakazuki. But generally speaking, I think if you want to slot in an extra 5-drop, Carrot is just better. And I think the best 5-drop in the deck after your 5-cut Smoker is the new Bonney blocker. So I wouldn't cut any of the Bonnies for the Luffy. But I mean, if you're, for whatever reason, not wanting to play 4 Bonnies or you don't have them, I would advise slotting Carrots in, but Luffy's okay as well. Now, we'll start talking matchups right now. As I said, the OP13 meta brought a lot of good things along with it for Smoker, most specifically the Slash package and the 8 cost Mihawk. Unfortunately, it was very rough for Smoker in the matchups department. Now, you will see, just as sort of like a visual aid, the matches, like the decks that have a check mark next to them are decks that I think you beat. If there is a die there, I think that you only win the matchup if you win the die roll, and you lose the matchup if you lose the die roll. And then obviously the cards that are beside there are your key cards in the matchup. Obviously, in every single matchup, you want to see your Smoker. In every single matchup, you want to see your Mihawks. So these are matchups where some cards are specifically better than in other matchups. Zoro, like in every single green matchup, you want to see Mulgun. I think this is sort of like a controversial opinion, but I think Smoker beats Zoro if you play the matchup properly. So what you want to do against Zoro specifically, because you need to play very, very well, or else just the raw power that Zoro has will run you through. What you want to do against Zoro is, you want to go first. It's okay if you go second, but what's most important here is that if Zoro plays Tashigi after he plays Smoker, when Zoro goes second, Zoro can only swing 9 into your Smoker, and you're smoking your Smoker defense 8 instead of 7, because he is a punk hazard character. So you can counter out of the Zoro swing into Smoker using only 1 2k counter. Now that does not sound like an insane advantage, but I assure you it makes the matchup infinitely better, a lot more winnable. Essentially, you pretty much defend your smokers for free on curve, and that is usually enough tempo to ride until the end of the game. Mulligan removes everything that Zoro plays except for Mihawk. And even if he plays Mihawk, you can just rest him to go for a lethal push using your one cost event or Hody Jones. So yeah, Zoro definitely not one of the Smoker's roughest matchups, I would say. Still, you need to find Smoker on curve, which is sometimes a big ask if you're not lucky, but you should be able to. I mean, we're running 4 Smokers and 8 Searchers, so it should be fine. Also, not a Tashigi matchup because Zoro has no way. It typically runs no removal for Smoker. I mean, it only removes by attacking, so having a strong body to defend is usually very good into Zoro. Green Purple Luffy, traditionally one of Smoker's better matchups. It still is. It's, in my opinion, got even better because it used to depend on sticking Smoker and then playing Kid and praying your opponent didn't find Gamma Knife. Right now, you really don't care about Gamma Knife at all because you don't have Kid in the deck anymore. Lucky for us, that's why I insist Kid used to be, at the very least, a terrible card to rely on. Now you just rely on Mihawk, which is infinitely better, infinitely stronger, much harder to play around. You still want to do essentially the same. You want to play your Chopper on curve. Chopper essentially soaks up one attack every single turn for the entirety of the game. Then you just want to find Mulligans. This is one of those matchups where even if you don't find Smoker, if you find enough Mulligans to remove your opponent's Sanji Puddings, you essentially just win the game right then and there. So yeah, there's not a lot of innovation in this matchup. It became harder to play properly, I guess, because your opponent can just flip your blockers, and you cannot rely on being on defending behind Kid anymore. But the matchup is still pretty easy. Like it's one of those matchups where if you know how to play it, you will probably win most of the time. Now, for roughest matchups, in my opinion, going from the easiest to the hardest, Shanks and Rayleigh are both pains in the ass for this deck. More so Rayleigh, we'll talk about it in a second. But Shanks, I mean, it is a Tashigi matchup for a red deck, which is straight up bad, just out of the gate. Unfortunately, we're not taking 4 Shanks because I don't think we can afford to anymore. The last time Shanks was centralized in the meta was in OP11, where you could take in OP10, I'm sorry, where you could take for Shanks a lot easier. Unfortunately, I don't think you can afford to take 4 Shanks anymore. And because we're not running the Bembek Mans, the 5-cost Luffys, the Monets, the Otama 2k counters to remove crap, Shanks, I mean, pretty much just runs you over. You want to go first, even if you go first. I think the matchup is Shanks favored. But if you don't go first, essentially Shanks just rushes you down. Sometimes there's like a million Shanks builds running around. Sometimes Shanks just runs for whatever reason, like the 5-cost Luffy. Anyways, they run Dragon. You're not running Kid anymore. Even if you were running Kid, you could just eat Mulligan and die. Some Shanks are running Red Force, which is insanely annoying for you. This matchup is just a pain in the ass. You essentially want to just play on curve, like very solidly play on curve. You want to combo your life early, prioritize defending your health early. And this is one of those things, at the very least, where not running Kid anymore rewards you very, very well. You actually now can defend your first lives a lot more with a lot more confidence. It used to be that if you defended your early lives and you then found Kid, you were kind of screwed. You kind of screwed yourself out of a win there. But right now, because you're relying on Mihawk instead of Kid, you can just combo the first couple 5k swings at live. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but this is important. When you're playing against Zoro specifically, if Zoro attacks your life in the first couple turns and he's not swinging 8 at you, he's swinging like 5 or 6, you just want to combo out of that, even if you're still at 4 life, because the attacks are only going to get stronger. Shanks is one of those matchups as well. If you have your cards in hand to play, you just want to combo out of the 5k swings. Because he is going to rush you down with like Monkey D Dragon or whatever afterwards, or like the Tenko Shanks or something. and you need the life as a buffer, then this is probably the worst matchup for Smoker. Probably the worst matchup that I've played with this deck since I started playing it in OP10. Rayleigh is pretty much unplayable. This matchup is unwinnable, unfortunately. If you have a line for it, just share it in the comments, please. But I really don't see how you ever win against a Rayleigh playing properly. Now you want to see your chopper blocker. You want to go second. You want to see your chopper blocker, and ideally you just turn 1 search, turn 2 play chopper. Rayleigh doesn't find buggy turn 1, so he cannot aggro you down with buggy, which you cannot kill, obviously. Then on 6 dawn, you just play smoker, and then you pass with like double spiderweb up or whatever. And then on 8 dawn, you just start vomiting Mihawks, and then you pray that Rayleigh didn't set you at 0 life before. And then you pray also that Rayleigh didn't find Mulligan to remove your chopper on curve. And if all of that happens, maybe you win. Maybe. But it's awful. I mean, if you play this matchup, you know how bad it is. Pretty much unplayable. Like, unfortunately, if I might be playing Rayleigh this expansion instead of Smoker. Mostly because I hate playing the matchup against Rayleigh. I just hate it. It's essentially it's terrible. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Okay, so having fixed my whining about Rayleigh, then we have Teach, which I think you beat handily. The matchup didn't change all that much. You're running less ODs, which is unfortunate, but you're running Deadman's Game, and Deadman's Game is insane against Teach. I think one of the most important things with Smoker right now is knowing how to use your Deadman's Games proactively to control the board. Like when to Deadman's Game, just like on like your opponent has like 2 guys, you have like a Smoker and a Chopper on board, and just Deadman's Game and start swinging to their board. That's pretty good typically, and it's not an obvious play for the most part. But into Teach, it's just very easy. Like if they play Caribou or whatever, they try to set up anything. They don't pop Kuzan for whatever reason. You just advance game and start swinging into their board, and then you pretty much win the game there. Bonney still traditionally it's a great matchup. You just find Mulligan and win. Fortunately for you, your going second curve got a lot better, and Bonney's second curve got a lot better, I guess. Less so than Smoker's, but I think you want to go second right now in this matchup. It used to be that if you went second and you found Smoker plus Mulligan, it was better than going first, but I used to think going first was more consistent. Right now, your going second curve is just better, so you don't even have to run the risk of going first. Like you just go second, and if you find Smoker Mulligan, you win. If you don't, it is one of those matchups where if you find 0 Mulligans, the matchup can get hard, but it's okay. Hody is also particularly good into Bonney if you don't find your Mulligans. Mostly because Bonney doesn't really apply a lot of pressure, so you can just Hody Jones freely, mostly on curve, which is what's most important. Then obviously the mirror, it used to be very, very annoying to play, and it still is. Luckily, it's a lot more skillful now that you have Mihawk and the events are around, but it's still sort of like a miserable mirror to play. You want to go first. It's essentially, if you go first and you find your entire curve, you can pretty much ride the tempo wave to close out the game. Kuzan is sort of annoying, I guess. It is one of those matchups where if you find Tashigi, you can win solidly, but if you don't, then you are praying that they don't fight Gravity Blade. But if everything goes well and you are able to use your spiderwebs properly in the late game, you play like Mihawk Bonney, aggro him down, pass with like 4 down open for when he attacks you. You should be able to counter out of his attacks and be able to finish the game properly. That's why Bonney, like the 5-cost Bonney, is such an important card in this deck right now. It sort of like became a centerpiece of the deck. because it allows you to play the late stages of the game um, a lot more flexibly. The fact that she essentially costs 4 Dawn if you want to leave a Dawn open instead of 5 is insanely relevant into some matchups, and Kuzan is one of those matchups. Um, and then, well, finally we have Blue Purple Luffy. Blue Purple Luffy is still a favorite matchup for Smoker. Right now, I would pretty much say it's one of those matchups where if you kind of see mostly decently, just instantly win. The matchup used to be favorable for Smoker before, kind of, but right now it's just sort of like a huge blowout in favor of Smoker. I would advise playing Tashigi. Like, you can be kind of risky, and if you're confident you can dodge the God Thread on curve, you might be able to get away with not playing Tashigi. But honestly, just play it. When in doubt, just play the Tashigi, even if they don't have the 9-cost mom anymore. But right now, you can just aggro down Blue Purple Luffy very easily. A lot easy. The matchup, like I said, I used to think if you saw your pieces, the matchup was favored for Smoker. But right now, without the 9-cost mom or the 8-cost Katakuri, you can just sort of like turn your character sideways and Blue Purple Luffy just dies. Enel, like pretty much every single yellow matchup, if you find Tashigi, you stick your Smoker and you just toast Enel. However, if you don't, the matchup becomes a lot harder. I will say though, a lot of Enels are running the 4-cost Kuzan, which can bounce Tashigi to your life. And if you're only running 2 Hody Jones, that might get kind of annoying. But essentially, if you manage to stick one of your threats, which is not that hard to do if you're dumping Smoker Tashigi or Mihawk Bonney Tashigi, sort of like a chain, then you kind of win. And sticking one threat is something that Smoker, specifically OP12 Smoker, that's very well. And then we have the removal based black decks. Rob Lucci and Sakazuki. Both are terrible. Rob Lucci, historically your worst matchup. Right now, that honor goes to Mr. Rayleigh. But Rob Lucci is still annoying to play. It became a lot better now that you have Mihawk, fortunately. But I think you still lose. Like I said, you have a lot more of a fighting chance now because you can essentially spam Bonney in the late game to keep refilling your hand and to dump your duds so that you never run out of threats. However, Rob Lucci definitely has enough power, enough raw power in his cards to just remove everything, even if you manage to stick your Tashigi. And then we have Sakazuki. Sakazuki is awful for you, mostly because you're a 4 life leader that defends 5, which Sakazuki essentially prays into. And also because Sakazuki can just remove your Tashigi for free. He swings 5 with leader, and then he town blazes your Tashigi for 2 Dawn, and swings 8 at you or something with Ahina or whatever. So I would say Sakazuki right there. I mean, Rayleigh is pretty much unwinnable. Sakazuki, you can kind of scrape a win by if your opponent draws poorly or plays improperly or whatever. But still, it's miserable. Like, if you thought Rob Lucci was bad in OP12, in OP11, sorry, you didn't face this, man. I mean, this is just, it's so rough. Now, final slide here. We have Purple Luffy, still sort of like a coin flip. You win the die roll, you essentially stomp him, you lose the die roll. Maybe you lose. Your going second curve got a lot better, and Purple Luffy got no new tools. Additionally, I believe Purple Luffy is still not running 9-cost mom in the latest builds, so that's very favorable for you. 9-cost mom is kind of like a roadblock. Right now, the meta is sort of positioned in a way where Purple Luffy just doesn't run the 9-cost mom, so I would advise against playing Tashigi because having the extra counter in hand is very useful. But if the meta develops in a way where Purple Luffy not runs 9-cost mom again, then you want to keep that in mind to play down your Tashigi with your Smoker. Then we have Kalgara. Kalgara is essentially Smoker, but faster, which means that he beats you, unfortunately. If your locals have a lot of Kalgaras running around or something, this is one of those matchups together with Kuzan where Carrot essentially shines a lot. So I would advise maybe you take off the hoodies and you run 2 carrots, or maybe like drop 1 Bonney and run like 3 carrots, 3 Bonney. I mean, it's kind of straightforward. Kalgara just does what you want to do, but slightly faster, and that essentially gives him sort of like a free win into you. Free win is saying too much, but the deck is definitely favored into Smoker, I would say, from my testing, especially the more aggro Kalgara variants that run the 5-cost Ace. And then we have a blue-yellow Nami, which now has access to the new Oden from the Newgate and Ace starter deck. These matchup used to be pretty much free for Smoker, and it still is. If you find Tashigi and Smoker, you pretty much just stomp Nami. All of your guys swing 7 or 8, and Nami defends 7, and it's pretty much all she does. I mean, you want to pay attention to not get... I mean, Nami's not only blue, but also yellow, so you want to pay attention and try and prioritize finding Tashigi just to not die to Zeus or Gravity Blade. But other than that, if you play with a little bit of care, you should win very, very easily into blue Nami. And finally, Piss Kid, which I guess most people affectionately call him. This deck is essentially, for Smoker, this deck is pretty much Enel light. He is a lot more aggro than Enel, generally speaking. Maybe a trigger can mess you up, but if he doesn't get insanely lucky with triggers and you play properly, you should be able to play at 0 life, removing everything he has on board. Just bait. You want to try and bait Law and Kid when they have the blocker ability. You want to try and bait them to block like a 7-cost swing with Smoker, and then you just, when they're turned sideways, you just mulligan them and swing 5 into them to kill them. Once you take control of the board, you pass with like a blocker up and maybe Spiderweb or whatever. You start chaining Mihawks, and you just run your opponent out of cards. Like, it's crazy to say that, but you can actually run this deck out of cards very, very easily. I mean, your deck, this is essentially reverse Kalgara. This is sort of like a mid-rangey yellow deck that's slower than you, and you can definitely, in the same way that Kalgara punishes you, you just punish Yellow Kid very, very easily. So, like I said, I'm trying something different with this guide. I'd rather just get the guide out and try and help people right now. The meta's still developing, so it's really hard to define a specific list so that I can say, yes, this is the exact list that you should be running, kind of like I did last time. Mostly because the ban list just threw everything out of whack. So I will be answering questions as always in the comments. Feel free to comment, message, and if you like the video, please subscribe and like the video. It really helps me out a lot. And I hope I will see you around on my next video or on my guides. I will also try to stream sometimes. Probably not this week, but maybe the next one. So I hope I'll see you around the stream. Feel free to say hi, and yes, feel free to like and subscribe.